This episode of An Irishman Abroad with me, Jarlath Regan. A few very quick announcements. People have been inquiring about the tickets for the live episode with Graham Linehan in the Museum of Comedy on January 29th. Those tickets are sold out. The next episode will go on sale very soon, and I'll announce who the guest is and when it will be on very soon. All you have to do to keep up to date on any announcements and forthcoming episodes of the show is subscribe to the newsletter at jigsaw.com or follow me on Twitter at Jarlath, Jarlath, or send us an email if you have an idea for a guest or somebody you think you can put our way that would be great for the show. My email is, as always, jarlo11@yahoo.com. If you want any more details on the show, jigsaw.com is the place to go. There's the online tip jar, and my thanks to everybody that has been leaving a couple of bob in there during the week. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Currency Fair. Currency Fair is the best way to exchange currency and send funds to bank accounts worldwide. If you are abroad and want to send money or get the best exchange rates possible, just visit currencyfair.com for an efficient and safe alternative to ridiculous bank and broker charges. That's Currency Fair. Very thankful and proud to have them as our partner for the show. It's the Michael Redmond episode this week. Michael Redmond, as many of you will know him, is Father Stone from the entertaining Father Stone episode of Father Ted. And I realised I've been working with Michael for the last 10 years of my life, and it's not a case of I wonder what happened to Father Stone. Michael's just always been there. I've just known him that length of time, known that he's a great stand-up comedian. You may have seen his acting work elsewhere, from The Brass Eye to Stuart Lee's Comedy Vehicle, various other things that he's been in. He's also had his own BBC Radio 4 series, which you're going to hear the full story behind that and how that brings us to the present day, where I met him in King's Cross while he prepared his pilot for Channel 4. Michael Redmond is really incredible writer, amazing joke teller, and he has seen comedy over the last 30 years evolve from something very small in London to something colossal, and how he decided to turn his back on it and move to Glasgow. The journey that he went on, going away and coming back, and having his work stolen in the process, is really something to hear. He's a very mild-mannered guy, and it's easy to see how he was cast in the role of Father Stone. But what was most interesting for me was to finally try and get down to what is it that really aggravates him? What is it that would drive Michael Redmond to violence? And we find that out over the course of this episode. I really enjoyed it. I hope you do too. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Michael Redmond episode of An Irishman Abroad.
Hello, my name is Michael Redmond and you're listening to An Irishman Abroad.
That's the small talk. Now let's get down to business. Now, your programme. What's the big idea?
Well, they've learned to know the Irish much better. We've now got to know how largely their mind works.
I could not have done the job I did for quite a number of years in Ireland. I had to go and earn my living in England.
I think a lot of it's in my hair. I think there's a lot of Ireland in here.
I have an Irish upbringing.
20 years after an Irishman couldn't get a fucking job, we had the presidency.
It was some heightened awareness of how hard my tribe had it in London. No blacks, no Irish, no dogs.
Never has a nation so small inspired so much in another. So you could say there's always been a little green behind the red, white, and blue.
Our family's very Irish, you know.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special announcement to make at this stage. Would you welcome, please,
the wonderful Jarlath Regan!
Michael Redmond, thank you very much for coming on An Irishman Abroad.
Pleasure, Jarlath.
For a lot of our listeners, this is a kind of a blast from the past episode.
Okay, right.
Even though I've been around you for the last 10 years and we've worked together a lot, you take for granted that other people who are not in comedy won't necessarily know what you've been doing.
Oh, not at all. Unless you say Father Stone. If you say my name, they wouldn't have a clue who I was. You know.
Does that bother you?
Not really, because I mean, if it wasn't for the Father Ted thing, I'd have a much lower profile. You know, I mean, I prefer to sort of, somebody come up to me and say Michael Redmond rather than Father Stone. Which happens sometimes, occasionally, but it's mostly recognised from Father Stone. Yeah, but I mean, it's better than not. Better being ignored, put it that way.
Sure. So it's never really bothered you at all?
Not particularly, because I mean, I don't really get hassled, I look at sort of people cornering me and sort of staring at me like lunatics, It's just the odd thing, so it's fine,
And when that came about, you said that you knew Dermot and you knew Ardle.
I knew Dermot from Dublin originally. We were kind of mates in Dublin. We just lived a couple of miles from each other,
Yeah.
So I kind of knew him from my brother. He was big mates with my brother, so I kind of got to know him from that.
I read that you had no concept at the time
whatsoever, because nothing had been broadcast. I mean, it was episode 2.
No, it was the first series, so nothing had been on television, so I had absolutely no idea. Because, I mean, you never know with telly.
Sure.
Even when you're filming it, you don't kind of get a sense of real comedy because you're looking at your script and kind of making sure you get your words right. Well, I thought I didn't have many words. Make sure I got my expressions right. So, yeah, you have no concept at all of the effect it's going to have. And it was still actually quite a few years after, even after it was shown, that people started recognising me, you know. So I think with telly, if you just got one sort of episode and that's it, people don't remember it. But it was
particularly at that time, because if unless somebody recorded it, then it disappeared into the ether.
Oh, totally, yeah. But it was just repeated so many times. I don't think any other, maybe Faulty Towers, I don't think any other comedy program has been repeated as much as it has.
Yeah.
Not just my episode, I mean the whole series.
Like broadcast again and again.
Yeah. So,
why don't you take us to how you got to that point of getting that part? I mean, you grow up in Blackrock in Dublin.
The mean streets of Blackrock.
You don't strike me as the kind of, I suppose, stereotypical image that we have of a Blackrock boy. Were you?
I suppose. Well, I wasn't your typical sort of rugby playing Blackrock boy, but I suppose I was to an extent. I don't really. It was very hard to judge, you know. I quite liked it. I didn't hate it growing up there. It was quite pleasant, you know.
Your memory of the time is, what year are we talking about here?
I left in 1968.
1968. You left.
Yeah.
And what age were you at that time?
I was 18. Yeah. That's Blackrock College. I didn't leave Ireland at 18.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that Ireland at that time.
Well, it was a bit. For me, it was grim because I didn't know I had no clue what to do. I didn't want to go to university. I had no particular thing I wanted to study, so I just wandered into an office job, kind of just to, at that age, you just kind of got to put some money and buy a car, kind of thing. Yeah. So I just got to have all these horrendous office jobs for about 10 years, walking in and out of jobs I hated. See, there's no comedy scene in Ireland then. Not that I thought particularly at that time of doing comedy. I knew I liked kind of writing stuff. Writing gags, kind of, even just in my head, you know.
Yeah.
But I know there was no comedy clubs. It was just your sort of mother-in-law, Irishman, Englishman, stuff.
Oh, sure. So Dickie Bow in the Burlington Hotel.
Exactly. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Or your workman's clubs, you know.
And your opinion of that obviously wasn't great.
Well, I didn't really have an opinion. It was just kind of, it wasn't that I was thinking I'd like to be a comedian, but where do I go? That hadn't really entered my head, to be honest, at that time. I hadn't really thought of performing stand-up at all, really. It was actually Dermot Morgan used to write stuff for Mike Murphy's. You remember he had that morning show, and he used to write sort of stuff for that. He said you should sort of send some stuff in and see what happens, you know, which I did. So he started reading out some of my stuff.
And do you remember any of those lines? I'm always fascinated when people tell me I can remember my first joke.
It wasn't just. Well, I can remember my first joke. It wasn't on Mike Murphy. My first joke was I just sort of walking one day. It just came to as the. Like most people from Ireland, I was born a Catholic, which came as a bit of a shock to my parents who were both Protestants.
You're out walking and this just strikes you as a pulp from the lip.
Yes. I don't know where it came from. Yeah, it was bizarre. Yeah.
What did you do with that?
Well, at the time I hadn't really thought of doing stand-up. I mean, I don't know where it came from. You know?
But you knew it to be a joke.
I knew it was a good gag. Sometimes you write a gag and you're not sure.
Yeah.
I knew that was a good gag. Yeah, that was probably the first gag I used when I went to London.
Really?
Yeah, I just open up with that. Because it was very much one-liner. Then I just did one-liners.
And are you writing them in the voice of Mike Murphy, or are you writing?
No, the stuff I wrote for Mike Murphy wasn't necessarily one-liners. It was kind of sort of monologues that would take maybe about a minute or so. You know,
right?
Maybe a minute and a half. It was kind of sometimes topical.
Okay.
Sometimes just stuff off the top of my head, but it was kind of stuff that would take maybe 30 seconds or a minute to read. It wasn't a kind of thing.
Bizarrely, that's how I kind of started, was writing jokes for Ryan Tuberty.
Really? It was a similar thing? Yeah, exactly same thing, yeah.
And it was quite well paid.
Mine wasn't. I used to get 15 quid a go.
For each joke? Or for
each monologue, yeah.
Each monologue.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It wasn't bad for those days, I suppose. That was what, 19...
It's about probably...
That was 1980, in fact, yeah.
When adjusted for inflation, it's about exactly what I was doing.
Yeah. But obviously, I couldn't make a living out of that, so I still had to do some shitty jobs, you know.
When did you decide I'd rather be poor and doing what I love?
I could pretend to be brave and that I left the big job, but I just hated all the jobs I was doing. I kind of was insurance, and then I did accountancy for a short while as well. I just hated it all. But it was kind of that's the kind of tradition I come from. Most of my mates were either accountants or solicitors, that kind of thing.
And did you look at them like I looked at my friends at the time and thought, how are you enjoying this?
I just couldn't. I just knew I hated it, and there was no way out. But I couldn't see a way out. I mean, I had no concept of what to do. I knew I liked writing those gags from Mike Murphy, but I couldn't see any way I was going to make a living. And then what was a guy called Billy McGrath? I think he runs his own production. He's had a comedy in RT for a while.
Yeah.
He opened up a club in Mount Merrion, which isn't far from me. So I just went along and did some stuff, and it went reasonably well there.
So your decision to leave the job and write a few gags for Mike Murphy and do these bits of performance to a modern guy who's committing to stand-up.
Yes, yeah.
It nearly is a career choice. But at that time,
it wasn't a career choice.
Everyone I speak to says it was more of a choice to opt out of.
And just something to do, basically. But even when I went to London, even when I was doing well in the comedy store, I still never saw it as a career move. I thought, Christ, I don't have to go to an office. So that was kind of my attitude.
Was leaving just kind of what you did? Or was it a case of, I'm going to make a break for it here?
It wasn't so much of leaving as what you did in those days. That was more the sort of 50s and 60s, I think. It wasn't kind of like, have to get the boat to England to work, and it wasn't like that. I knew Kevin McAleer had already gone to London, and I kept in touch with him, and I met him a couple of times, and he said, it's quite a vibrant comedy scene in London. But one of the main reasons I did go was that Dermot Morgan had which most people don't know about, he had a sketch show on RT. It was filmed, and I was in that as well, as a 6-part series. It was supposed to be, and then we were kind of waiting for it to go out, and there was nothing happening, and then RT, no commentary, and then eventually after about 2 years they put out an hour special, I think it was.
All 6 episodes just went into an hour and that was gone?
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
And was your hope that the 6 episodes was somehow going to catapult you into people's living rooms?
Yeah, could have got somewhere there, yeah. But particularly in Germany, more so than he was thinking that.
It must have been a heartbreaker.
The thing is, it was just ludicrous, because there was nothing particularly offensive about it. It was, some of the sketch show is hit and miss, obviously. So not all the sketches were great, but some of the stuff was really good.
Do you remember it breaking Dermot's heart?
Oh yeah, he was devastated. Yeah.
And was largely after that you were like,
I thought, well, that's not going to happen. So, and then I think probably around the same time I'd been in touch with Kevin, and he said, there was a violent scene in London. So I just thought, the hell, I might as well give it a go.
I recently watched a clip on YouTube of kind of that period, 1987, correct?
It was 87, I think. Yeah.
And it showed Irish guys heading for Kentish Town and Shoreditch, were places that a lot of Irish people were headed to.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just this YouTube video, but it seemed like there was quite a lot of squats, and there were guys coming over like with penniless, absolutely penniless.
Well, I was looking. I was left with some like 600 or 700 quid from some aunt or something. So I had I had no job at that time, so I just thought, well, if I don't go now, I'm never going to go in.
So you were actually quite well off heading over.
But by those standards, 600 or 700 quid wasn't bad,
I always think it's out of time, considering the arriving and not being able to, I know it sounds so silly, not being able to Facebook and text these guys.
I used to get Time Out magazine, and I'd look at the clubs, but I used to have to go to a phone box and ring them, because I had no telephone, or obviously no mobile. So I'd go to a phone box and spend about an hour every day in the phone box ringing up for an open spot.
Talk us through what happens then if they go yes.
Well, if they did, every one of them did in those days, because apparently now there's a waiting list for a year for an open spot. But I mean, there
was a shortage then.
Yeah, but those you could just ring up and they would give you an open spot, because they weren't paying you, so you were just doing 5 minutes. So if you had an hour, it didn't matter to them. I think within a week of arriving at an open spot.
It's obviously gone reasonably well when you've tried it on stage.
Yeah, reasonably well. Yeah.
I assume that you're terrified before going on. I mean, I've heard you describe being. I think you've said to me before that you're always.
I still get nervous. I'm not terrified anymore. But I used to just stand there. And I wouldn't even look at a member of the audience. I would just stare ahead.
How much of that was out of the personality of Michael Redmond, and how much of it was actually a protection method, whereby you were to give the impression to the audience that you don't care if they laugh?
It wasn't actually. I never thought that. People had just said that to me afterwards, and that never sort of entered my head that I was being that cool.
You thought you were Mr. Showbiz.
It was totally Michael Redmond, terrified of the audience. And after a while, I used to do one-liners, and I suppose I used to wear a Mac as well, and it looked very, very odd,
Why would you wear the Mac? Like,
Mac was
a conscious decision?
I got a huge laugh when I walked on.
Right.
I still don't know why. It was one of those things. I don't know where the concept of the Mac came on. What worried me after a while was that people thought it was a dirty old man thing, which it wasn't meant to be at all. It was just this strange character wandering on stage wearing a Mac. I used to carry a supermarket bag with me with something in it as well, so it just looked strange. But it took me ages, though. I mean, I remember I ditched the Mac, and I still had done it for about a year after that, but I still couldn't. I hated it because I wasn't getting the laugh the minute I walked on anymore.
Right, yeah.
And that terrified me. Then I gave it up for about 2 years after that.
You quit?
Yeah.
Oh, well, like there seems to be there's a path here that we're missing a big chunk of, right?
Yeah.
So it's gone reasonably well. You are frightened doing it. It's produced this persona.
I mean, it went brilliantly well, because a guy who managed the comedy store at the time, Kim Kinney, was kind of my manager.
I wondered, like, when I see the action, if people go to YouTube and see that period of time, it's romanticised as a period.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, it was all these iconic clubs characters like Jack D and Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, but they hadn't actually started at that time.
Hadn't even started.
They were a couple of years later.
Yeah. So this period of you're a strange animal.
Yeah, so totally.
Stand-up, whereas everyone seems to be doing stand-up as an extreme sport now.
Yeah,
like I do a bit of stand-up when I feel up to it. It's a hobby. You're an odd creature within odd creatures. Because what you do is not the
it's not your normal stand-up. No.
How hard is it to impress as a deadpan stand-up?
In those days it wasn't, for some reason. I don't know why. I think the Mac helped, definitely, because I got a laugh when I went on, so that kind of eased the sort of tension, you know.
Yeah.
And I suppose I had to make sure every one-liner worked perfectly, kind of. Particularly the way I did it, I would do a one-liner. I never thought to pause. That just happened because people would be laughing, and so I just wait for the laughter to die down and then do another one. I didn't sort of think, I'll do a one-liner and pause and see what happens.
Right.
Which people think I did, but I didn't. You know?
So it wasn't deft comic timing.
No.
It was literally just waiting for a bit of quiet again.
No. It just the way it worked out. Yeah. But I mean, the way I did it was that because there was that pause, that if the next liner didn't work, one line didn't work, it was very awkward. You know, because there was no sort of out. You know, it was just kind of that didn't work. You know.
Like
but there was a lot more scope for playing around in those days. It wasn't the competition kind of. You know. So
sure.
If you did reasonably well, you'd probably get a booking. You didn't have to kind of raise the roof to get a booking. You know. So you were able to kind of build up your sort of 20-minute act. I think it was about a year before I even went to the Comedy Store.
And are you, because it never looks that way, but you're obviously, there's something inside you going, I absolutely love this.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love the fact that I was able to express myself, I suppose, you know. But I hated that. I still don't like the concept of going to a comedy club and waiting to go on. I just hate that bit, you know.
Stuart Lee credits you with, and every list that I go to online, your name comes up again and again as having one of the greatest opening lines.
Yeah, that was never actually an opening line.
Really?
I never opened with that, no. I may have once by mistake, I know, but I never recall, because it was very much a build-up thing, this guy in a Mac, you know.
Yeah.
Standing in people's gardens. But you need to kind of draw the audience in before I did that.
So the line, for people that don't know it, is...
People often say to me, "Hey, you, what are you doing in my garden?" Not get out of my garden, which a lot of people think it is. There's something more threatening about what are you doing in my garden. Yeah. And just get out of my garden, like say you just wandered in and just get out, but it was kind of, what are you doing in my garden? As you were there for a while.
It just gives the impression that you've been there sometime.
Yeah. And they finally plucked up the nerve to say, what are you doing?
For a line like that, and during this time, I mean, you say that it was easier to play around back then.
Yeah.
And I sometimes do think that the period is romanticised because you have guys from that period like John Cooper Clarke and John.
He was never actually on the circuit in London anyway that I'm aware of, but I know what you mean.
Sure, but you know, there was an oddness to stage performance at the time that was embraced, where guys like Munnery and John Higley could emerge.
John Higley was the circuit star.
Yeah, like I wonder, would it survive today? Because today it's so...
so there was no telly then, no stand-up telly. I mean, the first one was Friday Night Live, I think. But that was it, you know.
That was the only TV stand-up.
There wasn't that competition then, you know. There wasn't kind of like, you know, that bastard's getting TV and I'm not. It wasn't like that at all. It was much more camaraderie that I can recall.
Really?
Yeah.
When do you get the call? Because if there is only one TV show, I would have thought that there would have been people going, how do I get on that? That seems to be the only way.
There probably was, but there wasn't that many comics, you know. I mean,
so where are you spotted to do that? Because that's obviously a big break.
I was lucky because I got the guy in the Comedy Store really liked me, and he was kind of my manager, so I used to get booked there almost every second weekend, you know.
Really?
And that's where the producers would go to the Comedy Store.
And just pick them out?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Which they probably still do now for Live with the Apollo. I don't really know the way it works now.
When I watched that clip back of Friday Night Live, you got heckled during it.
Yeah, but just
pretty much as you walked on.
Unfortunately, I didn't respond because you can't really hear. You can't hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, some guys shouted, "Show us your willy." Television, you don't expect
live TV.
But it is live. It was totally live. There wasn't that kind of gap thing.
Yeah, where they can chop that out.
Yeah, and, but I just heard something, I didn't know what it was. I didn't hear him saying "show us your willy." So fortunately I didn't respond because the TV audience wouldn't have heard.
No.
So if I'd come back with a put down, they wouldn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So fortunately I didn't actually hear what he said. But that goes back to the Mac thing. This guy obviously thought it was
dirty old man trick. Yeah. The terror that you've described in going on, I can't imagine that it was any greater than at that moment when it's your first.
That was terrifying. Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of pick up on it. I mean, it's a brilliant performance, but there is this. You can feel this shake nearly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was terrified. Yeah.
What happens after that?
Not a lot, really. I mean, it got a good response, you know. The problem was that was it, you know. There was only Friday Night Live. I got a spot on Clive Anderson Talks Back. He had a chat show,
which is huge as well.
Yeah, that was quite big, and I got a 5-minute slot on that as well. But after that was just kind of back to the circuit, really.
you head back out onto the circuit after these TV appearances. And whereas today, appearing on those things blows you up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You can now sell tickets.
Yeah.
You do a tour. You appear on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
For you, it was pretty much just back to...
Yeah, but the other thing is, though, that even if that was now, say I'd come over around now, I still wouldn't be able, because of the nature of my act in those days, it was 20 minutes of one-liners. You can't do that for an hour.
There has to be something else.
Has to be something else. I hadn't got anything else there.
Did you ever think maybe I should try and find something else? Or
stupidly at the time, I just thought, no, I just didn't know what to do. That's why I kind of decided to give it up, because I thought, I can't go any further from standing in people's gardens with this kind of... It wasn't a character, but it was kind of persona, if you like. I don't know.
That decision to quit, though, is...
I just couldn't... I just stopped the Mac, and I just kind of stopped doing all these one-liners. And it was almost like starting all over again, but I wasn't really enjoying it,
Is it because you've become kind of caged by...
Probably, totally, yeah. I've become caged by that sort of persona, and I didn't know how to sort of get out of it. And I just wasn't enjoying stand-up, and I thought, I'm just not any good at this, so...
Is there a moment when you put away the Mac, or can you remember a time when you go, that's that?
Stolen. I'd kind of been deciding to anyway, but I think I was doing Edinburgh, and I was at Leighton Live one night, and I came into the audience afterwards, and I sort of sat down and put my Mac in a chair or something, and then I went to the loo, and I came back, it was gone. Obviously somebody took it as a souvenir or something, I don't know.
But the decision to quit...
Well, I was unhappy then, because I wasn't enjoying it anymore. If I haven't got the Mac, I can't do it, basically. That's what I thought. I just thought, no, I'm getting checking this out.
Where do you go then? Because the concept of quitting it, to me, is so... This is what I do. I don't know, where else.
Well, I suppose the thing is that I thought what really started me off was writing.
Yes.
It wasn't like I wasn't desperate to perform at all. It was the only way of expressing what I wrote, basically.
So you went back to write?
I went back to writing. Fortunately, I'd saved up a bit of money because I was doing quite well then. So I could afford to just not work anymore, basically. I not work doing stand-up anyway. I'll just do some writing. I went back to Ireland for a while, for about 6 months.
And who did you write for?
Well, myself, basically. That was the problem. There was nothing. I think I tried to write a play, and it was dreadful. I can't even remember what it was about. I decided to go back into an Edinburgh show. I think it was. That was after about a year in Ireland. It went quite well. The Edinburgh show went quite well. I think it was 92 or 93. I can't remember. So when the Edinburgh show went well, I thought, I might as well start doing it again. So I went back to London. But I'd done the Edinburgh show, which is an hour, and it wasn't bang, bang, bang. So when I went back to the circuit, I found it didn't work quite as well on the circuit as it did where you have time in Edinburgh to kind of develop things, and tell a story. So
I know that you don't seem to be that interested in it. It doesn't seem...
In stand-up?
This idea that you would do so well at stand-up to the point where you could take a year off.
Yeah, I was very lucky.
I mean, I think a lot of people listening to this will find that fascinating. That you then took a year off and realised, I can't do it without this. Yeah.
Well, I can't do anything else rather than I can't do it without this, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically that was it,
You write this Edinburgh show that does well,
and
suddenly what used to work on stage doesn't work as well.
Clubs, yeah.
So, where do you go from there? I mean, the Mac's gone. You're now a guy wearing jeans and a suit jacket.
Yeah.
And largely the Michael Redmond that people may have known.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, well, it wasn't totally gone, but I mean, it was definitely different,
That's the Michael Redmond that I first met.
Yes, of course.
And you're improvising now on stage a lot more.
Yeah.
Involving the audience and allowing yourself a smile.
Yeah, but the thing is that number one, it got boring for me just doing one-liners. I just got bored with it because also I got to the stage where I just couldn't write anymore. Once I started standing in people's gardens, I couldn't go beyond.
Yes.
That really, and that sort of persona. I knew that to go further, I'd have to start engaging the audience, so it was when I moved up to Glasgow, because I spent another couple of years in London, and then I met my ex at the Edinburgh Festival, in fact, and she's Scottish, so...
I mean, you say, so I decided to move up to Glasgow, but that's essentially, in this game, like moving to the moon.
Oh, a disastrous move, career-wise, but it wasn't a career move, that was the thing. It was, we also had twins that was in, they were 2 years older than them, so we had no family down in London, so... And she had parents up in Glasgow, so it was kind of a cop-out to a degree, I have to say,
So it is a regret?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it was a cop-out. Yeah, because she had a job, so I basically became a house husband for about 5 years. Yeah,
doing stand-up every once in a while.
When I went to Glasgow, the Glasgow stand wasn't there.
Wasn't even there yet.
No, the Edinburgh stand was, but the Glasgow stand hadn't even started.
So how does it come about that Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews remember you, essentially.
And most people, when I got back to London, they obviously still remembered. I remember they came to a show in the Bloomsbury Theatre, and then I remember meeting them. This is the first time I met them. They said, "Oh, we're writing this show, and I kind of have you in mind for one of the characters." I didn't even know them, so. But yeah, they obviously probably remember me from Friday Night Live and so on.
Yeah.
And they have this idea of this priest, I suppose, who visited and never said anything, basically.
Like, I think that following the trajectory of the story that we're following here, did it bother you at all that they're kind of going, well, the thing that you used to do?
I never thought of that, to be honest. It didn't strike me. I just thought this is some TV show, this character. I never thought they're looking back. But it wouldn't have disturbed me anyway, because I wasn't really that precious about what I was doing anyway at that time. I didn't really think it was clicking anyway. So. Did
you audition?
Yeah, well, they hadn't intended to, but Jeffrey Perkins was a bit wary. I don't know. He probably just saw me as a stand-up and didn't think I could do anything. So I was kind of called in on the basis of just. I don't think I was told I got the part, but they kind of said, they kind of want you. They just like you to read some stuff anyway.
And as we said at the start, once you shoot it, I mean, the recollection of Arthur and Graham on this show is that the audience reaction to this first season in the studio at the time was phenomenal, and that was what blew your hair back. Was that people who worked in studio sitcoms weren't used to hearing that level of noise come from the studio audience. Do you have any recollection of that?
No, the opposite. I remember coming up stage and saying to Arthur, "Geez, not laughing." But that was probably because I'm used to bang, bang, bang. So they probably were enjoying it, but I sort of, it's a different kind of concept because I've never done anything like that before. So I was expecting once I say something to be, but it wasn't. But I don't remember. No, to me, I thought I'm really enjoying this.
I find it bizarre that it goes out and disappears, and it's kind of only 3 years later that it becomes this cult hit. And you suddenly start to be recognised.
But I think most television takes that sort of time, doesn't it? Because I remember, I'm a huge Monty Python fan. I remember seeing Faulty Towers and thinking, that's quite funny, but it took, a few times before you think, this is absolutely amazing.
I think that around then, definitely. But nowadays it feels like it becomes a viral thing on...
Well, it has to become an instant, It's like everything is instant now, everything is instant,
I mean, notes get fed back based on what's being tweeted.
But you were definitely allowed more scope now, because I remember reading when Father Ted came out, it was the first episode was reviewed in the Independent and was just slated. I mean, it wasn't even kind of like, this isn't very good, this is just total crap, how are they getting away with this? I don't know if some guy had some gripe with Graham and Arthur, but it was slated, really horribly slated,
I mean...
I probably thought it these days, they probably wouldn't have even shown the second episode.
It's hard to believe that it was slated, even though I can remember not quite getting it initially. Probably because that kind of thing hadn't been done too much.
It's not just that, there's a different nature. Sitcom is totally different to stand-up. Stand-up is very instant. Sitcom is you almost have to take a while to know the characters. It's like kind of meeting people socially, and it takes a few months before you're actually going to become mates, because
you get what's funny.
You enjoy the person. I think sitcoms you actually have to like the people in it or identify with them in some way.
Sure, or grow to like them.
So it's a much more sort of a lengthy process to like a sitcom than it is to like a stand-up. I think it's totally different.
Apologies again for a couple of things. I sound extremely croaky because I've been sick all week. I'm actually on some really strong antibiotics, which means that I'm just on any old run-of-the-mill antibiotic, but I want everybody to take my illness very seriously. I just picked up some chest infections this week and couldn't go to Edinburgh, so apologies to the people that were going to the stand this weekend for shows there. I just didn't make it up in the end. The live episodes of the show, as I said, are all in the pipeline and getting locked down at the moment for the coming months. One with Graham Lennon is happening on the 29th of January. It will be uploaded to iTunes on a Sunday, so even if you don't make it along, you will get to hear what happens on the night. For more details on everything related to Irishman Abroad, go to jigsaw.com. But if you want to get a little bit of value for yourself as a result of listening to this podcast, there is somewhere else you can go. It's currencyfair.com. Currency Fair is the partner of Irishman Abroad, the reason why the show is continuing. So if you want to do us one favour this week, just go and sign up for Currency Fair and tell them that Irishman Abroad sent you. Currency Fair is the best way to exchange currency and send funds to bank accounts worldwide. Basically, it's a unique new peer-to-peer marketplace that ensures big savings on exchange rates and fees and puts you back in control. What does that mean? This means that there's now a safe and efficient alternative to ridiculous bank and broker charges. If you're like me, you were sick of the bank saying, and that's going to be a €10 fee on top of that exchange there. Well, Currency Fair recognised that people are sick of that and figured out a way to avoid you having to pay those fees. Currencyfair.com cuts out the banks from the exchange rate process by matching you with another customer selling the currency you want to buy. The entire process is safe and secure. All the client money is held separately from their own, and they're regulated by the European Union Payment Services Directive. I've used it twice this week. Let me tell you, it gets easier every single time. There's a couple of bits to do before you sign up. You sign up and then you've got your account. You deposit your money there, and then you basically make the exchange rate within their service. Then you're free to move it and push it along to any bank account you name, obviously following certain restrictions. But currencyfair.com is the best way to cut out banks from the exchange rate process. Exceptional rates, and unlike banks and brokers, their rates are not dependent on how much you want to exchange. Every customer gets the same equal access to the same fair rates. Thanks for listening to the interval of the show. I will be doing a couple of announcements at the end, so if you're a real hardcore fan, stick around to hear those. But let's get back to the chat with Michael Redmond.
Some of the things that you've been involved in, such as Brass Eye, I mean, there's another thing that was panned critically at the time, and has grown to be this massive cult hit. Do you feel, having seen comedy over the last, nearly 30 years, that there is a sensitivity growing in the audience, that the audience has become maybe a little more sensitive to whether they should be laughing or not?
No, I don't think the audience, I think the television companies are running scared a bit more than they used to.
Why do you think that?
I don't know what this to do with money. I don't know, I'm not really involved in telly that much, but it might have something to do with money. I don't know.
And in terms of the audience itself, you don't feel that's the case?
I can't see how. Why would they just suddenly become more sensitive? It doesn't make sense now.
I kind of maybe think that it's a trickle-down effect, that if the guys with the money are saying you should be a little more, should we be more careful about this, that...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, it's comes from the television.
Yeah, but it trickles down to the audience.
Do you think so? I don't know.
I do. Well, I certainly feel that the university audience, whereas that would have been more, anything goes.
Yeah, possibly, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's hard for me to just, because my stand-up doesn't border on the offensive or
sure.
Anyway, so
mine either.
Yeah, no, yes, similar, so I don't really get that sense from... I don't know, but maybe if I was a bit more offensive, then maybe I would.
I don't know, but have you not witnessed the hysteria around things? I mean...
yeah, but I mean, I don't know whether that's driven by the media or whether it's driven by the public. I don't really know. It's a hard one to judge, I don't know. The Eamon Older Brother Jesus thing, that was originally a radio show. And
it was commissioned by Radio 4
and recorded and...
ready to go.
And then the guy who originally commissioned it was your kind of... a guy called Jonathan James Moore. He was, your sort of Cambridge type with a corduroy jacket and patches, that kind of... So it was all recorded and written and recorded, and I think it was about 2 or 3 months before it was due to go out. He resigned, or his contract was up or whatever, I don't know. He wasn't fired or anything like that. We was replaced by this Scottish Catholic called James Boyle, I think his name was. Yeah, it was about a week before it was due to go out on Radio 4. He was looking through Radio Times, and he saw this Eamon Older Brother Jesus, and he thought, tapes as it were. It was actually cassette tapes. That's how long ago it was. And he listened to it and he says, no, that's not going out on Radio 4.
Just like that.
That was it, yeah.
I mean, you talk about a heartbreaking turn down.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all recorded and ready to go.
Was done, yeah.
I mean, you've done an Edinburgh show that had been well received. Yeah. Eamon Older Brother of Jesus, and the concept is just that.
Yeah. And then also, the idea of it wasn't to be blasphemous. Not that I'm concerned about blasphemy. I mean, I'd be happy to be blasphemous if I wanted to, but it would get boring after a while if you're just being blasphemous.
Yeah.
It'd be just a sketch and a joke, and that's it, The idea was that Jesus had this older brother. Well, firstly, that the family were Irish anyway, that Mary and Joseph were Irish immigrants to Nazareth.
Yeah.
And that Jesus had an older brother called Eamon who didn't get a look in, basically, because it's that concept of the Irish mother with the priest who was the golden boy.
Yes.
In this case, it was actually the Messiah, so... so Eamon didn't get it. That was the joke. It was a family kind of dynamic. That was the joke of it.
I mean, if we take the central problem with that this man had, who axed it before it even had a chance to air.
Yeah.
I mean, the show is clearly about family dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. That was totally it. Yeah.
It's a family sitcom.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We've all experienced
it. Yeah.
Or seen it.
Well,
Golden Child.
Classic sibling rivalry, sort of. In this case, his younger brother's the Messiah, basically.
What do you understand his problem to be with it?
His main problem was, I heard later, and I just couldn't believe it was so ludicrous that, as a Catholic, if Jesus had an older brother, therefore Mary couldn't have been a virgin.
That was his problem.
That was part of the problem. Yeah. I just couldn't believe somebody could be so small-minded.
That he couldn't allow somebody to imagine a world where that was possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
That one detail was incorrect.
No, I don't know that was true. That's what I was told.
I mean,
but I couldn't see what else he had, because it wasn't offensive. There may be a few if you're a really, really, really sensitive Catholic, there might have been a few gags that might offend you, you know. Although I don't understand this concept of being offended, it's beyond me. Unless you're personally attacked, you know, because I'm not religious, but if I believe in something, I wouldn't give a toss what somebody else thinks. You know, they can offend it as much as they like. I believe it, so
yeah.
I
heard somebody talk about it. I think it was Sarah Silverman saying that, you know, if you have a fiver in your hand behind your back, if somebody says to you, I don't think you have a fiver in your hand. You'd be like,
exactly. Yeah, well, exactly. That's the perfect way of putting it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can think what you like, but I know I have. Yeah.
There seems sometimes it appears that maybe the anger that comes out and no, I fucking have a fiver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
That it's like there's nearly too much protest that there's a doubt.
Well, that's what it is. That's the religious thing, because they know that they can't know for sure.
Yeah.
That doubt is there whether they like it or not, and
they're raging against
when you bring it up, then that bastard is, you know, I'll get him,
calling this into question.
Yeah. But that's what, because they can't be sure. Nobody can be sure. No matter how religious you are, you cannot be sure because nobody knows. I suppose it's a security thing for people like that. I can see where it comes from. It must be very comforting if you believe there's somebody looking out over you all the time. You know, I can't believe it personally, but if you do believe that, I can see there's a comfort in it. And then if somebody questions that, then they become enraged. You know?
And then there's the things that people just think that was such an atrocity that you can't discuss that.
Yeah.
That you can't make humour from that. Now, I had long discussions with my wife about why it's essential to joke about those things at some point, and why it might necessarily be wrong to frame things in the context of those particular tragedies. Is there anything that's off limits? Like, clearly you don't believe that religion is off.
No, because you're joking about a concept.
Yes.
I personally don't find, you know, a joke about the Paris bombings, I wouldn't find that particularly funny, I have to say. People have died, because people have died horribly, and no matter what sort of side you take. I mean, if you're making a joke about the concept of people who are objecting to it, then that's fine. But, you know, I wouldn't find anything funny about a joke about 6 people who've just been shot dead, basically.
Yeah.
Put it that way, you know. I don't see why you can't joke about a concept. That's a different thing altogether. I mean, I'll say you can't joke about it, but I just personally wouldn't find it particularly hilarious. A joke about 6 people dying. You know.
Well, I think the bar is just so much higher. Like, I think that, you know, I'm not saying that you can make jokes about that. What I'm saying is that...
Well, I think you can. I'm not saying you could. I'm not saying people shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
Just personally, I would
that's my point. Is that, like, do you believe people should be allowed to try?
If they want to, yeah. I mean, because, unless the relatives of the 6 people or 10 people are shot, unless relatives are in the audience, then why not? You know, why should somebody else be offended on their behalf? What to do with them, you know?
And there's a massive outrage over whether this famine sitcom will go ahead.
Yeah.
It's something that doesn't even exist yet.
I know, yeah.
Like,
I don't even know.
They're actually angry over something.
I think people like to be offended almost. They kind of feel. You know, sometimes we hear somebody dying, and even though somebody isn't really that close to them, they kind of like to feel they're kind of it's part of their life almost. You know, I remember seeing a couple of. You know, there was the recent bin lorry incident in Glasgow where 6 people were mowed down or something like that, and there's people on Facebook and kind of grieving. I can understand why you'd feel sad about something like that, but kind of like almost a personal grief, kind of like, and they're kind of getting other posts from other people outside Glasgow saying, "I'm really sorry for you, Jimmy." You know, even though he's not, wasn't any of his family that were killed. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they kind of want to be. I used to call them tragedy merchants. They kind of like to be kind of included in a tragedy, if you know what I mean, even though it's not their tragedy.
I think I do know this phenomenon that you're talking about.
Yeah,
I've heard comics talk about it as well. It's this that in some way they're not saying. Some of these people are not saying, "Oh, this is a terrible tragedy."
Yeah.
What they're trying to say is, "Oh, look at me! I'm so sensitive. I feel these things
exactly,
on such a deep level."
And there's people saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry for you, Jimmy," and all that. Fuck off! It's nothing to do with you. You know?
Yeah. Why don't you let Jimmy alone?
Yeah, exactly.
To deal with his grief.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not his grief anyway. You know, you can if you're from Glasgow, you might feel a bit more sad than somebody outside of Glasgow, but it's not your tragedy. You know, people like to think this is part of me. You know, it's like when I remember seeing this guy when Diana was killed. Being interviewed, you know, there was all these flowers and he was raging with my Diana, you know. I don't think he was your Diana, frankly, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think Diana would have thought my Tommy, you know.
the person that I mentioned earlier who, you know, made jokes about Diana that a lot of people took major issue with and made many of these jokes that we've spoken about religion and caused massive controversy and bore the brunt of a lot of what we're talking about is Stuart Lee. And he kind of raised your joke that we're talking about, that opener. It wasn't an opener.
Yes,
and put it out there that somebody had stolen this joke from you.
Yes, yeah.
And knowing that you weren't that well known, felt that he would get away with it.
Yeah, well,
how do you stand on that?
This was probably a few years after I left London, and he probably thought he's not around anymore.
You think that it was that knowingly?
Probably, yeah. Well, it was either that or as Stuart probably, I don't know whether he mentioned it, that a lot of these guys are writers. Could have been a writer thought, oh, well, Michael Redmond isn't around anymore, that's not a good guy, I'll give that to Joe.
Right.
But there's another story along to, I don't know whether I've told you.
No, let's hear it.
It was a few years after Stuart had highlighted this, and I turned on daytime television. It was a chat show with Des O'Connor and Des and Mel. It was in the middle of an interview with this 16-year-old kid, and it became clear throughout the interview that he was wanted to be a comedian. So Des O'Connor said to him, give us an example of one of your jokes. And I used to joke about, I like going into newsagent shops and saying, excuse me, is that Mars bar for sale? And when he says yes, I say, okay, I might be back later, I still have a few other ones to say. So this guy said, yeah, it's one of my jokes, I like going into baker shops and saying, excuse me, is that sausage roll for sale? And when he says yes, I say, okay, I might be back later, I still have a few other ones to say. It's my gag basically, just changing from a Mars bar to a sausage roll. But you know who he was? Joe Pasquale's son.
Get out of town.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
My God.
So I obviously have
a long lineage
I was brought up in the kitchen with all my gags.
Yeah, they're a big fan. Because Joe, by Stuart's account, is that Joe steals this joke about standing in the garden. Steals it wrongly.
Yeah, because he's Joe Pasquale, so as Stuart says, the joke was this strange character in Max standing in some people's garden. And if you saw Joe Pasquale, you'd say, what's Joe Pasquale doing in my garden?
What was your response to that at the time?
I just thought it was hilarious because I wasn't doing the gag anymore, I wasn't doing that character anymore. And also that there is a concept now of people like Live on the Apollo and other places ripping off circuit comedians. I don't know how rife it is, but I know it. I've heard a few stories, I don't know how true they are because I don't really do the circuit down south anymore. Have you heard about this? I don't know.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
I have. And
so
I don't know how much to give it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could be a bit of both sides. I don't know. Yeah.
We'll get into the nature of theft in terms of jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But go ahead.
But that is a different thing because I'd already done this on telly. I'd done the Clive Anderson thing.
Yeah.
I'd done the garden joke. So everybody knew it was mine. So it's kind of the other way around than it is now, where you have a TV comic stealing off a circuit comic. I'd already done it on TV, so he just looked stupid because
you had documented it.
It was almost like patented it,
yeah.
So it didn't really matter, you know. I just thought it was hilarious.
When he was doing the joke, were you getting texts from people going,
No. Well, the first I heard of it was when Stuart did it. He wrote a newspaper article about it.
Really?
Yeah. So that was the first I heard of it. Yeah.
Now, the argument that had been put forward was, well, who really owns jokes? That there's lots of coincidences.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it can't be that they're not, you know, like, if you can do a topical gag, it could well be.
Yes.
You get another comedian possibly doing it, you know, or some kind of standard observation, but no, you're not going to. Two people aren't going to think of. I don't mean that I'm unique, but I mean two people aren't going to think of that. Hey, what are you doing in my garden? You know, it's just.
But there are jokes that aren't topical that have been thought of by a number of comics. I can think of one in particular is, I'm not a racist, some of my best friends are racist.
Yeah.
The line that I think I can list 3 comics of good reputation
who do that,
who do that line.
Yeah. And nobody knows where it came from.
And nobody knows where it began.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones where, and I've been a victim of it myself, where you're like, I can remember you seeing me do that joke.
Yeah.
And why is it appearing in...
Well, I'll tell you why. I'm not going to mention names because it's a bit too sensitive, but I used to do a thing in London. It was New Material Night in the Canada Club in Islington, I think it was. And there was a very well-known comedian of today who used to come along. Now, one guy, there's a guy called, his actual name was James Miller, his stage name was James and Carb. He used to do very dark stuff. And I remember, it was every 2 weeks anyway, he did this routine. I can't remember what it was. It was about 2 or 3 minutes of new material that he thought up.
Yeah.
And this particular well-known comedian was in the audience that night. And he was doing it as well. He was doing this new comedy night. And I remember him being in the audience, or part of the comedians. He was there anyway. So like 2 weeks later, I went along again. And this well-known comedian, almost word for word.
In the same venue?
Yeah, no, I was talking about, I'm with the guy there. But I'll tell you what it is, though. I've noticed it before. There's another comedian I've noticed as well. Something goes into their head.
Yeah.
They're so desperate that they convince themselves that's my material. I've just written that.
I mean, that was the Louis C.K. argument with Dane Cook. I don't know if you're aware of this argument. Was that this huge spat started over this material that it appeared that Dane had stolen from Louis, a lesser-known comedian at the time.
Yeah.
And he felt that all that had happened here was Dane has hours and hours of material, and that all that happened was that something had been sucked up into his thrusters, that he absorbed what was around him, And in this frenzy of trying to put out as much as he could, it got lost where he'd heard.
That's still not an excuse, though.
It's still not an excuse.
Yeah, it's a reason, but it's not an excuse.
No.
And I think that does happen, because, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, this comedian, I'm not going to mention his name, but you wouldn't have thought he would do that. And if you'd seen him do it in some other club, with the guy who was 2 weeks later in the exact same club, and the guy who'd done it 2 weeks earlier was there.
Yeah.
So he obviously didn't think, I'm ripping this off.
No.
He just sort of, he obviously liked it and just went in.
Yeah. I guess it's again a different age now where you can actually document things and
probably more so,
a lot easier. Whereas you have yours on the TV.
Yes, I was looking at it because it's almost like patented.
Yeah. So and once it's logged on your phone.
Yeah, he just looked ridiculous. Yeah.
But the difficulty is, and the difficulty I found was, what are you going to look like when you go to that person and go, what's the story here?
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't get any satisfaction from doing somebody else's material. You have to be kind of that really driven in an almost desperate way to kind of do somebody else's stuff.
I've never discussed it on the podcast, but it's an area that I don't know if regular people give a fuck about.
Yeah, no, probably. No. The audience don't give a toss. No.
I wonder, are people listening to this going, so what?
Yeah, exactly. A joke is a joke. Then, they don't give a shit.
I know comics that have pinned other comics up against the wall
in
dressing rooms over jokes that have been stolen. I know that Robin Williams used to write checks at
well, he was pretty notorious.
Yeah, people used to just come up to him and he would sign a check for them for whatever he'd taken.
Yeah. Well, the reason the public don't understand is that they don't realise that our career can hinge on what you write, you know. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it hasn't happened to me. It must be horrendous for a circuit comedian to go on and do a gag and somebody say, oh, that's somebody else, is the guy who's been alive with the Apollo's gag.
Yeah.
And it isn't, you know. That would be heartbreaking. That would drive me. I could see why somebody would grab another comedian by the neck and don't do that again. But I think if it did happen to me, I think I would physically threaten somebody. I think that's the only way. And I would say at first, that's my material, don't do it. But if we did it again, I think I would quite happily physically threaten.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that's... I never thought that I'd hear you say that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a violence side. It comes out now and again. But yeah, I mean, if I'm sort of pushed, I could see myself doing that. Not to Joe Pasquale, because...
We kind of found your nerve. We found the line that you can push Michael Redmond to.
Yes.
This is it.
But I don't see with Joe Pasquale because he just looked stupid, you know?
Yeah. It was more of a funny... scenario.
But if I don't really do the circuit down south anymore, I just mainly Scotland. So, but if I was doing a gig some night and somebody said, "Oh, that's such and such material," and I knew that he'd rip me off on television, then I would be fucking enraged.
Yeah. I mean, we're meeting now in King's Cross, and for those of you that aren't able to picture,
the salubrious Alhambra Hotel.
This is the Alhambra Hotel in King's Cross, which sounds really grand.
Based on the Alhambra in Granada.
Yeah. But it's one of the smallest hotel rooms I've ever been in my life.
I don't think you really call it a room, could you?
No. The only hotel room I've been in is smaller. I said it to you on the way up here. Was in Edinburgh, my first time over there with my wife. We had to step over the loo to get into the shower cubicle. You've got more room than that, but the reason why you're here is you've been commissioned for a pilot. That's a huge deal.
That's great, it's fantastic, I'm really delighted,
And where does that go, and what's the hope?
You're commissioned to write a half-hour pilot, basically.
For Channel 4?
For Channel 4, so they pay you 50% of your fee once you're commissioned. Not straight away, Channel 4 takes a little while to get the money, but that's another side of it. But you get 50% straight up. So then you write the pilot, and then they sort of look at it and think, well, do we like this or not? And if they say, we like it, then they pay the other 50%. And then they may either make a pilot, or they may commission you for a series. It kind of could go either way.
Could go either way.
Or they could say, sorry, we just look like this, and that's it, gone. You know?
Do you mind me asking what age you are now?
64.
64. How does it feel, I mean, being here in London in 1987?
Yeah.
And here we are in 2015.
It's bizarre,
This is, the break that...
Well, this is what I really always wanted to do. It's kind of, I said earlier, that it's the writing I really like. You know? I like performing, but if I had to make a choice between earning a living as a writer, a comedy writer, or a performer, I would choose the writing side. I like both. But if I had to make a choice, that's where I would go. You know?
Why is that?
I just like the creative process, because I can find performing, I can't find it, I won't say boring, but I can't get a bit tired of it. Just doing I like to change my material as much as I can, as you know yourself. You probably do yourself just for your own sake, rather than even regardless of the audience. But I find after a while, if I've done a gag or a routine about 10 times, I start getting very bored.
Yeah. It can be a bit soul-destroying, definitely.
Yeah, so I like the creative side of it, just thinking up things, writing new stuff. That's what I really like.
I really, really hope it
so do
I mean,
so do I.
And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will be hoping the same thing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it could be, these things take so long, it could be
another
2 years down the line before I even hear that I'm not getting it.
Yeah. The only question that I ask every week on the show to all the guests, and we've only had one person who had no answer for it,
right,
was over the course of your life you've obviously learned an awful lot, and a few things that I'm sure you can know for sure. One is that you would physically threaten somebody who stole your
I'll give you a warning first.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't just go straight into my fist.
Right. Well, what is the piece of advice that you can give with confidence at 64
about stand-up comedy?
About anything?
I suppose, go back of my own sort of career is believe in yourself, because I didn't. That was the problem,
Really?
Just just believe in yourself. Don't care. Don't sort of listen to what anybody. Not that anybody else said to me, don't stop doing comedy, but I mean, just believe in what you do and keep doing it. Don't sort of give up no matter what the circumstances, if that's what you want to do.
Why didn't you believe in yourself?
I just didn't have that confidence. I'll give you an example. I love my parents and all that, but I came up that era where you kind of don't get above yourself.
Yeah, don't praise them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't. Yeah, don't. I was a quite happy childhood. I'm not slagging my parents.
Sure,
it was quite nice, but it was that kind of. I remember when I said to my mother, "I'm going to London to do stand-up comedy," her response was, "But she wouldn't have enough material."
That's amazing.
But that's sort of even though I kind of laugh at that, it's in there though.
Yeah.
You can't totally get rid of it. So that probably comes from that tradition of don't get above yourself, and
I definitely think there's a lot of comics doing comedy because of their parents.
Possibly, yeah.
And not because their parents said, "Go do it, son."
Oh no.
The opposite.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, Michael, it's been an amazing chat. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's really good.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. As we say, in middle class Dublin.
There you have it. It's the Michael Redmond episode, one that I've wanted to do for a long time. Certainly an interesting man, and I think we learned a lot about the journey and what he's been through over the last few years. I hope you enjoyed it. My thanks to Michael for taking the time to do it, and wish him the very best of luck with everything he has coming up in the pilot with Channel 4. I certainly hope that gets up and running. I have a few thank yous. A few Hey Pat, love the show emails came in this week. Thanks to everyone that sent them. I don't have time to go through all of them, but I do want to say thanks to Anthony O'Connell. Made the biggest donation the podcast has ever received. Thank you, Anthony, for doing that. The tip jar is there at jigsaw.com if you want to throw in a couple of pennies. I'd really appreciate that. Kenneth Crowley also made an incredibly generous donation. Thank you, Kenneth. As you can tell, my voice is not good, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But a massive thank you to everybody who's been in touch this week on Twitter and Facebook as well to support the show. It's very easy. Just rate, comment and subscribe to it on iTunes, and push it on to a friend if you know somebody that would enjoy it. We've got a couple of really nice guests on the way this month, and I hope you'll stick around and maybe push it on to a friend. I'll be in full voice next week, don't you worry. But thanks very much, everybody, for downloading this episode of An Irishman Abroad. My thanks to Currency Fair, our partner, to Tina and Mikey, and obviously to Brian Connolly for producing the show. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you next time.